Good evening, everyone. My name's Anne Dobbing, and I'm a member of the core group of the Scottish Laity Network. And tonight it's my great privilege to welcome you to the final evening of our Advent Journey 2023. Over the past 3 weeks, we've been reflecting on our theme, Waiting in Grief for Peace, the Power of Lament. As is our tradition, let us now spend time in prayer, reflecting on the signs of the times. We invite you to listen to an Aramaic chant by Neil Douglas Klotz of the second Beatitude according to Matthew. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Let us now spend a minute in silence, inviting the Holy Spirit to fill our hearts and our minds. And so tonight, we conclude our programme with a Liturgy of Lament, led by our companions, Hyab, Yohannes and Abrehe, Zemichael. Hyab and Abrehe have both travelled many miles from Eritrea and probably experienced many hardships on the way, but they will tell you their own stories. All I can say to introduce them is that we are sincerely welcoming them this evening, and that we are privileged to share their Advent reflection. Thank you so much, and over to you, Hyab and Abrehe.
Good evening. Thank you, Anne, and thank you, Rab and Rosa as well for the invitation. And thank you for everybody for being here. It is It's a great pleasure to be here with you. And this is my second time, or third, I'm not sure, attending some of these sessions. And I found them really incredibly helpful. And thank you for creating such a very safe space for us to reflect on our own stories, but also the stories of people that we keep hearing about. And we will start by just introducing ourselves, and I am going to start to briefly tell you about my story, and I will also be reading a poem that I wrote for a book chapter that I contributed for Oxford kind of publishing press. So my name is Hyab Yohannes, originally from Eritrea. I was born and raised in a small town called Karen. It's a city, basically. We call them towns compared to the cities here in the UK. And I'm a child of farmers. Both my parents are from farmer families, and my roots are deeply embedded in the lands, rivers, forests, and communities of my homeland. I grew seeds and harvest crops from the lands, fetched water, and fed my herds from the rivers, and found everything I needed from the forests. This includes shelter, food, wood, beauty, and so many other things. And the people and communities were very diverse in terms of age, genders, religions, and beliefs. And we usually come as a community together and interact with each other. 12 years ago, I left my home country, and since then, I have experienced disorientation, incompleteness, and suffering. When I sneaked through the physical borders to Sudan, I was condemned to an impoverished life in a camp, in a refugee camp. When I escaped the camp, I was held hostage in the desert. When I went to the cities, I was kidnapped. When I survived trafficking, I was dehumanized in an asylum system. When I was finally recognized as a refugee, I was left stranded in a temporal suspension. And since I have been resettled in the UK, I have been thinking a lot about the structures of coloniality and how they impact me even here. The question I keep returning to is, how do we bear witness? How do we bear witness to the unbearable? I often return to my pain body for answers, and this is my poem that reflects on this. Excuse me. My body is my home. My body is a temple, a holy abode, a sanctuary of life, of language code, a source of vitality across the globe, a place of loss, longing, and hope, an archive of knowledge, stories untold, an ontology of being, theories unfold. My body is my home, a memory, an ocean to roam. But what if borders, violent and biometric, rob the sanctity of the biologic? If dehumanization erases the embodied, can my subjectivity still be repaired? If violence robs life of its grace, can I still heal the wounds in my flesh? If my body is perpetually lost in exile, can I still save my home all the while? Abrehe, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for having me. This is my first time to participate in this gathering. Yeah, my name is Abrehe Zemichael. I was born and raised in Eritrea in a Catholic family. I attended my primary and secondary school in a Cistercian monastery and then pursued studies in philosophy and theology. In Eritrea, I worked for 3 years as an administrator for 25 schools run by the Catholic Church of Karen. In my role, I was involved in budgeting, developing curriculum, planning, supervising lesson plans, and ensuring child safety and handling reporting responsibilities. Like here, I was also part of the indefinite national service in Eritrea. Fortunately, unlike Hyab, I did not go or undergo any ordeals. I came to the UK in 2004 for further my studies and graduated with a master's degree in social development in 2005 from the University of East Anglia. At the moment, I work in the public transport sector as an access and inclusion officer. Reflecting on my experience in Eritrea, I have witnessed the suffering of numerous ordinary people. As you might know, we were colonized for generations, and now our country has turned into a self-colonizing state. Honestly, our history is one of pain, suffering, and brutality. However, we do not give up on hope, joy, and a life of dignity. In this spirit, I would like to share the following reading from the Holy Bible with you tonight. A reading from the Holy Bible, 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 13 to 18. Brothers and sisters, we do not want you to be uninformed about those who sleep in death, so that you do not grieve like the rest of mankind who have no hope. For we believe that Jesus died and rose again, and so we believe that God will bring with Jesus those who have fallen asleep in him. According to the Lord's word, we tell you that we who are still alive, who are left until the coming of the Lord, will certainly not precede those who have fallen asleep. For the Lord himself, trumpet call of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. After that, we who are still alive and are left will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. And so we will be with the Lord forever. Therefore, encourage one another with these words. This is the word of the Lord.
Thank you,
Thank
Abrehe.
you.
Thank you, Abrehe. Yeah, I will briefly tell you what the objectives for this session are when we planned it. We had three objectives in mind as we prepared for this session. Our first objective is to invite you to bear witness. Bearing witness entails allowing ourselves to feel the visceral pain of suffering, to speak to us, remind us of the discomforts, challenge our misconceptions, and deeply resonate with our souls. Bearing witness might be unbearable due to the intensity and density of pain. So we issue a warning in advance. Our second objective is lamentation and grieving the ungrievable. Lamentation is an acknowledgement of the pain, naming it and calling it for what it is. Grief captures our radical dependence on one another and serves as a reminder that without each other, we are nothing more than corporeal beings. In grief, we are summoned beyond ourselves. Our third objective is to share our account of hope grounded in faith. Hope is the belief that the sun will rise again. Hope is a gift of time yet to be lived or not. Hope is the evidence of the unseen, the unlived, and the unknown. With that said, let me clarify what this session is not or is not about. First, it's not a debate, as there is nothing to debate on the side of mass graves, especially those of innocent children. Second, it's not about suggesting that what you might do to help others, as doing so would place us in a position of power that determines certain actions for others. We do not wish to hold or attain such a position. We prefer to remain in a state of resignation and prayers. Third, this session is not a test of spirituality. Rather, it is a testament to our faith in the common humanity we share. Now, let me explain the structure of the session. First, we have a 24-minute video recording that we have pre-recorded, and that begins with the fate of my colleague in Gaza. And it ends with an invitation for each of you to share 2 words in the chat box afterwards. Then we will have ample time for questions and comments, feedback, discussions, and so many other things. So without further ado, I'm going to play the video now. Let me know if the sound is not shared, or Abrehe.
We know that it's very bleak, it's very dark. There's no way out. If there's no water, there is no way out of Gaza. What should we do? Like drown? Like commit mass suicide? Is this what Israel wants? And we're not going to do that. And I was telling some friend the other day that I'm an academic. Probably the toughest thing I have at home is an expo marker. But if the Israelis invade, if they charge at us, open door to door to massacre us, I'm going to use that marker, throw it at the Israeli soldiers, even if that is the last thing that I would be able to do. And this is the feeling of everybody. We are helpless. We have nothing to lose.
This is my Palestinian colleague, Professor Rafat Al-Ariel, who was killed in Gaza by an Israeli airstrike on December 6, 2023. A few days before his death, he sent me the following text. I am the quintessence of dust. Unfortunately, he has now become dust himself. How can we live when life itself is at stake? How can we grieve the ungrievable? How can we bear witness to the unbearable? In these moments of profound weariness, we find ourselves continuously grieving and bearing the unbearable. We witness faces fade into memories, children torn apart by bombings, buried under rubble, or even born into death. We hear the heart-wrenching cries of mothers who have lost their babies, and the stories of innocent people vanishing in prison cells deep beneath the ground. In those moments of profound weariness, we watch on TV screens the earth closing on people yearning for a life of dignity.
The earth is closing on us, pushing us through the last passage. And we tear off our limbs to pass through. The earth is squeezing us. I wish we were its wheat so we could die and live again. I wish the earth was our mother, so she'd be kind to us. I wish we were pictures on the rocks for our dreams to carry as mirrors. We saw the faces of those who will throw our children out of the window of this last space. Our star will hang up mirrors. Where should we go after the last frontiers? Where should the birds fly after the last sky? Where should the plants sleep after the last breath of air? We will write our names with scarlet steam. We will cut off the hand of the song to be finished by our flesh. We will die here, in the last passage here and here. Our blood will plant its olive tree.
The unbearable reality of painful death is becoming increasingly normalized. Life seems expendable. Joy is out of reach, and existence appears empty. Yet, in these moments of profound weariness, we find solace and guidance in faith. When humanity fails us, faith becomes our anchor, pulling us back from the depths of despair. Faith, says the Jewish philosopher Emmanuel Levinas, is not a question of existence or non-existence of God. It's believing that love without reward is valuable.
A reading from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, from verse 1 to 8. The way of love. If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but have no love, I am nothing. If I give away all I have, and if I deliver up my body to be burned, but have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. As for prophecies, they will pass away. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will pass away. This is the word of the Lord.
With this faithfulness, we confront the ungrievability of life. and the unbearability of painful existence. We carry on. We make coffee.
All Ethiopians are proud of their coffee. We usually make coffee ceremonies 3 times a day. The main reason why we do the coffee ceremony is to social with our friends or family. It is the most important hospitality.
We light candles.
A candle is burning, a flame warm and bright, a candle of hope in December's dark night, while angels sing blessings from heaven's starry sky. Our hearts we prepare now, for Jesus is nigh.
We listen to hymns of hope.
نمكحلو صدقي أبزي هلونا أنت يكن المخيل بسوردنا أنت يكالو إيو كما أمان حليفنا أنت يكن المخيل بسوردنا أنت يكالو بمجحان حتى رايكونت تبوا حزب خان مسمع هايتصان عكان كنك عدونا بريم هتابعنا برخصين كنا فرنا معسود لسانا مغفار ناخونه كمل كابي هوت أتنحكنا يوم الجنزيو تلوتنا ناخونه كمل كابي هوت أتنحكنا
listen to songs of joy before the war.
reading from Romans chapter 12. Love in action. Rejoice in hope. Be patient in tribulation. Be constant in prayer.
After all, we are joy. We choose hope. We are people of faith. We are the children of God.
La gina che estonzi mai colerdia. La gina che estonzi mai colerdia. Wala la gina que estonzi mai colerdia. La gina que estonzi mai colerdia. La gina que estonzi mai colerdia.
We have opened this somber reflection with the words of Professor Rafat Al-Hariri. Let's now conclude with his poem, If I Must Die, Let It Be a Tale. If I must die, you must live to tell my story, to sell my things, to buy a piece of clothes and some strings, make it white with a long tail, so that a child somewhere in Gaza, while looking heavens in the eye, awaiting his dad, left in a blade, and bid no one farewell, not even to his flesh, not even to himself, sees the kite, my kite you made, flying up above, and thinks for a moment an angel is there, bringing back love. If I must die, let it bring hope, let it be a tale. By Professor Rafat Al-Hariri. We dedicate this reflective session to Professor Rafat Al-Hariri, and we ask for your prayer. If our colleagues in Gaza must die, who are alive to tell their tales of hope, we now kindly invite you to exchange gifts, gifts of words, words of hope. We will try to collect your words in a bowl of hope and perhaps create a poem. From us, we send to you 3 words. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you both so much for sharing with us, for giving us so much to think about and reflect on. And perhaps we could just invite people to take a moment to share their thoughts, reflections, and comments in the chat. and we can share them with you both. And perhaps as well as thoughts and reflections, people could share their own prayers. Thoughts of love and pain. Prayer for a hope that never dies. And a reflection that hope is a choice. But we hold that in balance with feelings of helplessness. Faith, hope, love, and trust in the Lord. As they continue to come in, perhaps Hyab, you could start us off and just respond to these thoughts of prayer for hope, yet helplessness, and how we hold these things in balance.
Thank you, everyone, for these beautiful words. Yeah, and to just give you a bit of context and some kind of interpretation or translation of some of the things that we have just watched. The hymns that we've heard are from Eritrean refugees who are in Ethiopia, who escaped, who survived from the Tigray war. And that for them was a way of praising God for saving their lives. And also trying to tell us we're hopeful that there is a place where we can safely stay and live and establish our lives again. And the music that we heard in Arabic, it was in Arabic from Sudan. It was before the war, and it narrates the story of Sudan from independence until the current war. Sudan is in war right now, and so many thousands of people are just dying everywhere in the deserts. And we cannot even hear a lot about these kind of things in the media here. But as people, as both of us have been in those places, and we have so many family members in those places as well. And we have we closely follow what happens in those places. And we have so many family members that we have already lost as well. And we're trying to bring that story too. We cannot erase the suffering that's happening in Darfur and so many other places. And that's our way of trying to say that there are other kind of crimes being committed and wars being fought right now as well. And some of the songs towards the end where people were singing together in a circle, that is one of the famous singers in Eritrea, who now lives in Sweden as a Swedish national. And he talks about the condition of being a refugee. And he tries to charter a journey from open wounds to a scar, where open wounds basically for him is a profound injury to human dignity. And how do we recover from that profound injury, from that open wound, and start our journey toward the scar, this healed wound, this body, this figured body, but still hopeful and faithful. So that's what that music tells us. And the poetry, and my colleague Arafat actually was telling me, his poetry is, I am writing poetry because language is not helping us. We've spoken, we've written letters, we've written articles, they have written books, so many other things. And that is not communicating their pain. It's not telling anything. We try to use everything, but no one appears to listen to us. And that's why we return to the poetry that speaks to them rather than that speaks to the world. So he was telling me that it's the visceral pain, the body's writing this poetry in their flesh and blood. And that's how we recover. This is our faith in humanity. That's what he was telling me. So for them, poetry is a way of writing things that are unwritten, but also writing future, the unwritten future for them. Abrehe, if you want to say a few words.
You should see the option to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
You can.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, just as a continuation to Hyab, having this theme reflecting on suffering, why innocent people suffer, is really very hard to answer this question. Innocent people, children, elderly, all over the world are suffering. And as the Christian teaching says, unless we see this suffering with the redemptive work of Christ, who suffered innocently for the salvation of humanity, unless we combine and see our suffering through his cross, it is really, really very difficult to understand why human beings all over the world are suffering for something which they haven't done. Yeah, for me as a migrant or refugee here in the UK, we are in a better place, and really we live in hope. And whatever we've gone through, we try to see it through the Christian faith. And yes, after all those ordeals, it is not easy to be easily integrated in a new culture, a new way of life. But if we keep believing in Jesus, believing in his suffering, there is always the hope one day all this suffering will pass and we live with him. In that spirit, I think it is really a pleasure for me to be in this beautiful gathering and share my experience with you. And of course, myself and Hyab trying to reflect and maybe also tell you our stories and to be really grateful for having a shelter and a place where we can live and work and be happy and hopeful for the better life. Yeah, this is really, really good. And I really enjoyed this evening. And it is good to have that kind of reflective programs, and I hope to continue to participate in that spirit. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Can I maybe just draw out one more thing from the chat and invite you both to respond? John has said, and I think put very beautifully, that lament means carrying the pain and asking for the strength not to put it down. What would you say as we gather and as we draw almost this liturgy comes towards a close? What would you say of the importance of bearing witness, as you have both done so beautifully and powerfully tonight, bearing real and lived witness to the pain that exists around us?
Yeah, thank you, Callum, and thank you, John. That's beautifully put. Yeah, as part of our stories can tell you that we've been carrying that pain for a long time throughout the journey, but also even here, because we have lots of other families who are already in pain, who have always been in pain since they were born, including our parents. And for us, it is not escaping these things, these painful realities. For us, it's holding on to them, trying to stick with them, and trying to imagine a safe place, a safe world, a new world from that position. So we always tended to position ourselves in that place because that is where we live. We always start with those stories, with our own stories of journeys and how we started our journey and all of that. But we don't also end in there, like just carrying those kind of painful realities. But we try to transform them into profound questions about what it means to be a human, what it means to be a refugee like us, or what it means to be a companion in places, in safe spaces like this. And that profound questioning allows us to try to understand what is happening, but also what can be done about things. What can we do better? And grief, as I said earlier, it allows us to see our radical dependence on each other. You've heard us speaking about Levinas, who he is the author of one of the famous books called Totality and Infinity, that tries to link spirituality with philosophy and the real life. And he talks about the face in front of us, the faces that we encounter without even knowing their names, without even knowing their origins. The face in front of us should always order and ordain us to respect the dignity of the person in front of us and do nothing else. So our responsibility as human beings, as individuals, is to create a world of the you, as he calls it. The you meaning anything outside of us. It is not the binary thinking about us and them and all of that categorization, but as a singular person standing in front of the world of the you and bearing a responsibility of carrying that world, but also accepting or recognizing that world of the me, the self, is being always transformed by that world around them. So that's what we all often stand in, that position of trying to think, what would the world of the you, the world in front of us, look like in order to accommodate all these kind of realities, all these differential humanities that we've spoken about, and how can we host them in a space that is safe and hospitable.
Thank you. Yeah, I wonder, Abrehe, if you would like to add anything at all.
Yeah, not to deviate from the theme. Yeah, it is really grieving is part of our life. Yeah, it is right to grieve. We have a lot of scars, wounds, memories, strategies, and flashbacks. All those come, and you might lose hope. But I think it's also very important to remind ourselves that Jesus, during his suffering, during the most difficult time, what he did was to pray. He prayed a lot. Even he asked the apostles to join him. Yeah, sometimes the grief, the suffering, all can surpass you and crush you. But in that moment, it is really important to reflect back and to pray for God's help, to pray for God's grace, to enable you to pass those sufferings and to try to forget what you have been through, and to try to live with hope for better. Yeah, as I said, we are witnessing really horrendous crimes being done to humanity, and we are all human beings, and it is really difficult to grasp why a human being commits such horrendous stuff to his human fellow or to other human being. It's really difficult to understand unless we see these sufferings through the suffering of Christ. Jesus suffered for us, and probably, if we consider our suffering has a purpose for others to be saved. I'm suffering for some good purpose. That kind of mentality would help us to pass and overcome our grief. And it is not by no means that to undermine that suffering to get to just it is because it is natural, or it is part of our original sin. That would be really overlooking. But to go deeper and give a meaning to your suffering would be helpful to pass and to overcome all the grief, and to be thankful as well for what you are now, for the state of being at the grace of God. You need to also recognize that the fact that you are alive is also a gift of God. So yes, there are many people who have passed through a lot of suffering. We are part of those who are suffering, and yet we are lucky to remain alive and to be thankful to God for being alive again, is that which can sustain us and keep us in faith in God. Thank you.
Well, thank you both very much. And as we draw towards the end of our liturgy, and before I hand back over to Anne, we invite you to continue the liturgy this evening in your own homes as we hold all of these thoughts and these intentions for hope, for the strength to carry the pain and suffering, to offer these thoughts and the thoughts that you bring to God in the silence of your own heart throughout the course of this evening and beyond. Anne.
Thank you to Hyab and Abrehe for your wisdom and honesty and your courage in sharing vulnerability with us this evening. I feel humble and proud to have shared this experience with you. And our country is richer in diversity because you are here. We stand together with all those who suffer in Gaza, in Eritrea, and everywhere where there is pain. And we promise that you and your work will be in our prayers. To conclude our Advent journey, we invite you to listen to the poem Advent Credo, and it's by a South African called Alan Bosak.
It is not true that creation and the human family are doomed to destruction and loss. This is true. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. It is not true that we must accept inhumanity and discrimination, hunger and poverty, death and destruction. This is true. I have come that they may have life and that abundantly. It is not true that violence and hatred should have the last word and that war and destruction should rule forever. This is true. Unto us a child is born. Unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders. His name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, the Everlasting Prince of Peace. It is not true that we are simply victims of the powers of evil who seek to rule the world. This is true. To me is given authority in heaven and on earth, and lo, I am with you even until the end of the world. It is not true that we have to wait for those who are specially gifted, who are the prophets of the church, before we can be peacemakers. This is true. I will pour out my spirit on all flesh, and your sons and daughters shall prophesy, your old men shall see visions, and your old ones shall have dreams. It is not true that our hopes for liberation of humankind, of justice, of human dignity and peace are not meant for this earth and this history. This is true. The hour comes, and it is now, that the true worshipers shall worship God in spirit and in truth. So let us enter Advent in hope, even hope against hope. Let us see visions of love and peace and justice. Let us affirm with humility, with joy, with faith, with courage, Jesus Christ, the life of the world.
In our divided and broken world, may we reflect the light of Christ. Amen.